time for Hey, I'm Talking Here with Frankie Corrado.
It's the one and only Frankie Corrado joining us here on the program. Thanks, Frankie. It's deadline day. Brayden Schenn rounds out the top 10 on the trade bait list. He still has 3 years left on his deal, AAV $6.5 million. And Frankie, he turns 34 before next season. Now, rumors have linked the Leafs to Brayden Schenn quite a bit. If you're Brad Treliving, do you like the certainty of that contract, or do you think it might age poorly in the coming years?
No, I'd be okay with the contract. I think it's more about what you have to dish out in order to bring in Brayden Schenn. And it feels like this year is going to be the year of term, right? Because the pool of teams that have UFAs is going to shrink because there's a lot of teams that think they're in the mix. So we're looking at these players with term. But, you know, if you're trying to make that, it's all about acquisition costs. You know, St. Louis is a team that wants to probably bring in some players that match the age demographic of who they've brought in recently. Broberg, Holloway, you have Thomas, you have Kyrou there. You know, Jake Neighbors is a really good player. So they're probably looking at your blue chip prospects saying, I want guys that can play very soon. And so, you know, you'll consider that because Brayden Schenn has a little bit of term, and you think that you're going to make continuous playoff runs, so you'll have him in the mix. But I still think it comes down to not necessarily can you stomach the years remaining on Brayden Schenn's contract. It's can you stomach the appetite for dishing out your blue chip prospects and what that price is going to be for a guy that, you know, is great leader, you know, captain material, all that kind of stuff. But might not give you the most offense that, you know, you might be looking for.
Yeah, Leaf fans have PTSD from former top prospects that they've traded away over the years in situations like this. Let's go west to Edmonton, Frankie. A name that hasn't come up much this year because he hasn't played. Evander Kane sits at number 24 on the trade bait board. Now, our colleague Ryan Rashog saying that Kane hasn't even really worked out intensely in back-to-back days, so he's not quite close to returning, but for the playoffs, that is a possibility. So should this play out that a Kane, you know, returns to the Oilers in the playoffs, how much of an impact do you think he could make? And let's remember how it ended for him last year, right? He was a healthy scratch in the Cup final.
I know, but he was definitely playing hurt last year, so that would have impacted how he was going to be able to play. I think Evander Kane is the exact type of player that you want to have on your team in the playoffs. Big, strong, can skate, gritty type game, really wants to drag whoever he's playing with into the fight. So if Evander Kane is ready for the playoffs, I'm not as concerned because he hasn't played this season because of the role you're going to have him in. You're going to have him in a role where he just needs to be a guy who plays hard. He doesn't have to be the scorer. He doesn't have to be the centerpiece. So you can kind of massage him into the lineup that way. And hopefully as time goes on, you know, he'll get acclimated and he'll feel like he's getting up to speed. But, you know, if you ask Evander Kane to do the things that he's good at, he can do that under short notice, not having played as much this season. That would be a really nice added bonus to this group, having Evander Kane, and especially if you get the Evander Kane from a few years ago in the playoffs that was lights out for the Edmonton Oilers. Like that would be great. I think that's wishful thinking, but he still would have some kind of punch to add to that lineup, even though he hasn't played this season.
Punch and nastiness. You had him with Corey Perry and Trent Frederick. I mean, yeah, that could be something for the Oilers in the playoffs. How about Mikko Rantanen? Seems like there's been just a lot of pressure on this guy in the last couple of weeks. He's got to make a decision, or I guess he doesn't have to. But how much do you know, he played again on Thursday night, no points, just hasn't seemed like himself. Do you feel like he just wants this week, this trade deadline to be over and done with and kind of move on from there?
Yeah, he never asked for any of this. Like, he never asked to be moved from Colorado. And then after going to Carolina, he never asked for, you know, all this attention as far as, you know, we're going to trade this guy because we can't sign him. And I think when players get traded, most of the time, like, they can see it coming, right? Like, you might not like your situation, so, you know, a team might facilitate something for you, or you're a UFA, and so you're a rental player, so you can wrap your head around it. He hasn't been able to wrap his head around this entire thing, not to mention he goes from two drastic systems, one Colorado where, you know, he's playing with McKinnon, and it's such a rush-based attack for them, and, you know, he goes to Carolina, and he's got to play this chip and chase, retrieve it, forecheck style of game. Like, there's a lot of things that have happened here in such a short period of time that Mikko Rantanen has never asked for. But I can't wrap my head around a Rantanen trade again out of Carolina. I think their team has lost too many players over the last, year. And then, you bring in a guy that you should have been okay with this guy being a rental in the first place, or why are you going out and getting him for a Stanley Cup run? So I guess I have a hard time understanding, why you're going to move on from this guy when he's such a proven playoff performer, and you need proven playoff performers because you have a hard time scoring come playoff time.
I see the 3 helmets behind you every time you're doing these hits from home. So you've been traded. We all know that, Frankie. Let's take you back 8 years, March 1st, 2017. Take a look at this.
We are back on Trade Center 20 minutes past the deadline, and the deals continue to trickle in, and there's some very interesting details on some of the last ones. Here's Gord Miller with the trade breakers.
All right, thank you, James. Pierre LeBrun, let's talk about this Pittsburgh deal. Eric Fair going to Toronto in exchange for, what's the deal?
Hold on, let me read what I put out here. I got a few things going on. Frank Corrado to Pittsburgh in exchange for Steve Alexi, Eric Fair, and a 2017 fourth rounder.
Oh, that happened after the deadline. So I'm imagining that you were kind of caught off guard. Take us through that experience when you found out about the trade to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's always nice to relive this. So I had cleared waivers with Toronto. My last game as a Leaf was terrible. It was such a mess. I cleared waivers. No one was going to pick me up. But I actually started playing well with the Marlies, kind of wrapped my head around the fact that maybe I wasn't going to get traded, and I was okay with that. So I actually booked a dental cleaning the day of the trade deadline at like 2 p.m. So I spent the final hour sitting in a dentist chair. And as I was like squaring up with the receptionist, my phone started vibrating in my pocket, and I started getting texts from people saying like, hey, say hi to Sid, or that's pretty cool, you're going to meet Crosby, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, I guess I better check Twitter. And sure enough, I had seen that there was a tweet from Pierre breaking the trade. And so, everything starts moving quickly. You start sending text messages. I sent one to my girlfriend, who's now my wife, just saying, hey, just got traded. And then shortly afterwards, she was like, yeah, don't you think you should call me with that information? And I'm like, yes, you're probably right. I should call you with that information. And then I did call with the information. But there was just so many things moving all at once, and I still had to pay the dentist. And so, yeah, there was a lot going on.
You went from the torture of the dentist chair to being traded. But hey, the teeth look great, Frankie. Now you're on TV. Look at this. It all worked out, right? Listen, thanks for this.
The teeth don't look great.
Get some sleep. I know you got a long day on Friday and early call time, so we appreciate it, bud.